Hello everyone, welcome back to Aussie Starcraft. We're bringing you some more Heart of the Swarm action. In the top right hand corner is our blue Zerg player, it is a Jimrising. In the top left hand corner is our purple Terran player, it is HTOMario. Now just a little by way of introduction for those of you who aren't familiar. HTOMario is a Belgian player living in the United States. Is quite famous for going mech in every matchup regardless of who he's playing and who he's versing. Always been one to try and make mech work. He's been featured on some Day 9 dailies and other things. Certainly one of the better mech players out there, probably because of the consistency with which he's trying the matchup. So that's one of the main reasons I picked this replay to start with, is I saw Mario's name on it and thought, who doesn't want some mech love? So thought we'd feature some Mario. Jimrising, he's a Mexican player that obviously plays Zerg. Hello, Captain Obvious, but great Mexican player. Both these players in the Grandmaster League, and should be an excellent game. The map is Altazim Stronghold, which is one of the newer maps. So these players, well, they've probably laddered on it a lot more than we have. It's certainly not a map that we're as familiar with as, say, Belshare Vestige and some of the other maps, but new to the map pool, it's certainly posing some interesting challenges for our competitive players. As you can see, down the front ramp there's a easy to take natural expansion, but it tends to be the third base. The reason for that being that there is a free natural actually inside and down this ramp at the back of your base. So you have a free natural inside your main base that you can wall off with this small ramp, but then you have a third base that is slightly harder to take. There is this quite large gaping big holes on either side. It's a very large 4-player map, so you'll see both players factoring that into their playstyle. We have Jimrising that went hatch before pool, and similarly we have Mario that's grabbed a CC before his refinery, and imagine his barracks, yeah, that's on the way now. So it's quite easy to take 2 base in this map, but a bit harder to take 3, and there's a few reasons for that. One's these wide open spaces, and this actual site blocker here does present some interesting applications for both offense and defense. So it's quite an intriguing map. There's a lot of different levels over a relatively short distance. As you can see, you've got a low ground option for a 4th base here. Then you've got your natural, and it's up again into your main and down again into your free natural. So it is quite an interesting map, and it'll be interesting to see how these players utilize these advantages, particularly Mario. We know he's playing mech. Things like this site blocker might play a little bit of a role. If he doesn't have medevac site, might actually inhibit some of his defensive units. Things like siege tanks won't be able to see and fire quite as far. So players will have to factor their defenses and offenses naturally around some of these newer challenges on the map. Looks like Mario is going to be grabbing his reactor. Factory also on the way, so I imagine we'll see a swap out here for some Hellions or some Widow Mines. It looks like Mario is giving Jimrising a bit of a hard time, but always fun to get some banter back and forward between the players. Extractors are on the way now for Jimrising. It's quite early to be going for two extractors, so it's very likely that we'll be seeing some sort of timing out of Jimrising. We have 6 in gas at the 5-minute mark, which is quite a bit earlier than we'd ordinarily see. Normally you'd see Zerg throw down 3 of their gas around the 6-minute mark, with the 4th one having been taken a little bit earlier. We have actually have Jimrising blocking his ramp with two queens. Obviously familiar with the fact that Mario does love his mech. 3rd command center already on the way for Mario, so it's power on macro mode for Mario. He's throwing down these command centers left, right and center. Obviously gearing up for some heavier macro play. We have first 2 Hellions are on the way now. No Zerglings as of yet on the field for Jimrising. It looks like he's going for very quick lair. Lair actually started before the 6-minute mark, and by the 7-minute mark the lair will be finished. Potentially very quick Mutalisk. We could see the Mutalisk on the field around the 9-minute mark, which would certainly pose a number of issues for Mario. And the reason for that being, we don't actually have a whole lot of anti-air defense. Things like the first Hellions going to going to be used to harass. As a result, the only anti-air will be any Widow Mines and any Vikings that are made. So a big swarm of Muta is going to be very dangerous. But we'll see how Mario decides to position these Widow Mines. We do have 2 on the way. I imagine that's probably a result of the fact that he was unable to get a scout off. Has to prepare for the worst, and the worst that could come currently for him would be Mutalisks. So planning accordingly. We have these Hellions continuing to nip around, trying to do any damage they can. The Queen's able to spread creep, but a nice scan goes down. He will in fact catch the Spire, sees that is in fact on the way, and he'll be in a position to throw down some Widow Mines and potentially even get out a Thor if he so chooses, or if he grabs a factory with his tech lab. Tech lab now done from the barracks, and the factory is almost finished up there. So you'll see most players that choose to play mech will do this a lot with the barracks. We'll use it to construct the add-ons for each of its successive structure. It helps streamline your build just a little bit. So a little bit of a tip there for you if you're new to playing mech. Make sure, well, or Terran in general I guess, but ensure that you use your spare buildings, even if they're dead weight and just a prerequisite. You can always use it to construct a few add-ons. Actually got a medevac coming over here. It looks like Mario may actually be using this for a Hellion drop, but this Overlord's going to spot that. We'll see if Jimrising actually has noticed that. We have some Evo chambers going down now, and a macro hatch finishing up inside the main base. But Mario's Hellions now are down here at the natural expansion. Is he going to use these to do some... Is he going to be able to do any damage to drone line? I think the answer might be no. Actually coming back in for another look at these. The Hellions are in the midst of... They're so close to being able to get a volley off them, but unfortunately aggroing on the Queens is going to keep all of those drones alive, and this medevac's flying to almost certain doom. 4 Mutalisks swoop in. That's got to be a horrific sight to see out the back window of a medevac. A big swarm of Mutalisks flying in. So that harassment's going to be cleaned up quite easily. Jimrising grabbing his 3rd now. We have Mario still on 2 bases, just using his command center in the main as a macro CC, but I imagine he'll look to move out as soon as he can secure a few anti-Mutalisk units like these Thors. First Thor finished up, second one on the way. We do have vehicle weapons level 1. You'll notice that after the patch they did combine both the weapons and armor upgrades, so mech just that little bit easier to tech now. You're able to grab all your upgrades at once. It's shaping up to be quite an interesting game. As we get to the 10-minute mark, there hasn't been a whole lot of action, but both these players have macroed hard, which should provide us with a fairly epic mid to late game. These Mutalisks looking for any open avenue, unfortunately flying into the missile turret there. We can see that Mario's placed a lot of defense. We actually have 2 Vikings here as well, so these Thors and Vikings provide a great disincentive for these Mutalisks. Mutalisks have to be so careful they don't fly into the Widow Mines that we know are actually tucked around the place. You know, there's 6 Widow Mines. They are tucked in neatly behind these buildings, so the Mutalisk going to be very susceptible to those. But Jimrising find a nice angle here to harass the workers, actually managing to pick off quite a few and getting one of the crucial gas guys, so it's going to slow down the gas mining for Mario, make it a little bit harder to get out those high gas cost units like the Thors. Most Terran players aren't used to having a high gas requirement, but mech is the exception, unlike Marines and Marauders that are very mineral heavy. Things like your Thors, your Ravens, and eventually late game even things like the battle cruisers, very gas intensive. So mech provides a slightly different economic challenge for Mario. We can see that we have ground upgrades level 1 armor and range weapon that's just finished up for Jimrising. And though we haven't quite seen, maybe it's going to be roaches. Indeed we have a giant sledgehammer, 20 roaches actually being morphed in here to try and threaten this base. We have a few Zerglings unfortunately meeting a fiery death at the Hellbat's hand, and just look at that, it's barbecued Zerglings tonight. So Mario continuing to throw down more missile turrets. These Hellbat's going to keep it very Zergling proof. And we actually have a Hellbat drop from Mario, so looks like Mario wants to do a little bit of payback himself, almost getting those those Hellbats on top of the drones, and they go down so quickly. But the Hellbat actually going to nick into the 3rd base. Can he get any drones here? Yes, does manage to fry one of the drones. The workers on gas, so they're going to get picked up. The Mutalisks are here, and unfortunately both those Hellions are going to go down inside the medevac. So if we Bring up the workers lost tab, is 5 to 6, so fairly even overall. Income tab likewise even, and even the harvesters, well, the harvesters is the biggest differential, 84 to 65, so fairly substantial advantage for Jimrising. Starting to use that, of course, to expand like crazy. He's got 4 bases now to 3 of Jimrising. That's pretty important when you're versing something like mech. Mech are hugely cost effective. You don't want to just run into the front over and over. Things like these siege tanks will just eat you alive. What you want to do is spread out, get map control, mine out some of these extra bases, and just eventually bleed the mech out. You can see Mario here doesn't want to give an inch, throwing down a bunch of extra missile turrets. The missile turret does finish up, does get the SCV and picks off the edge missile turret, but there are too many missile turrets, and that Widow Mine's just going to eat the Mutalisk alive. Such an expensive engagement there for Mario. If we check out the units lost tab, we see 3100 to 2000. Jimrising actually been quite a cost effective there. This massive roach bundle has actually caught the Terran player unsieged. Mario unfortunately forced to pull back. Jimrising is just slamming into these Hellbats. Hellbats dying, but just trying to buy some space for these tanks to fall back and siege. The Vikings are going to take out the Overlord. A few Widow Mines, they're going to do a bit of damage. Thor here is the most crucial unit, but one volley and it will be forced to fall back. These Widow Mines doing great damage. 2, 3, 1 kills, almost 8 kills between these 4 Widow Mines, so the Widow Mines, they're able to just push back the roach, and this is the danger of mech play. If you're caught unsieged like that in the middle of the game, it can be all over Red Rover, so you don't want to be caught out of position. Mario throwing down a bundle of command centers is very common to the mech player. Be surprised if we don't see one of these become a planetary fortress and the others become orbital commands. Another Hellbat drop, big Hellbat drop this time, 4 Hellbats into the natural expansion of Jimrising. We actually have some static defense going down there. I think there's a little bit overdue. A lot of workers did go down, an extra 6 workers that time. Hellbats are in one more volley. Oh, the poor Hellbat got distracted and fired in the wrong direction. There was so many red health drones there. So many roaches actually. How many roaches is that? 43 roaches on the field. So there's going to be plenty of roaches here to clean up these Hellions, but this Hellbat actually getting quite a lot of kills. 12 kills. 13 kills, so those Hellbats getting almost 22 kills. If we look at the work killed, 30, so from 13 to 30 in that last drop, phenomenal amount of damage. But as we saw in the income tab, that Jimrising had some workers to spare, so likely we'll see him keep macking up, as really what a Zerg player tends to do is out expand the meching Terran and just try to wear them down. He doesn't want to see the Terran player get a 4th base. 3 base is more than enough for Mario to be able to lay on a world of hurt. So Jimrising will be just trying to contain him as best he can. Unfortunately, things like these Widow Mines are continuing to prove just a massive nuisance. Got to build a few missile turrets. The reason for that is sneaky Zerg players like to burrow those roaches in and move them across. And if you don't have any detection, then it can be really embarrassing when the roaches pop up in the middle of your tank line. So it's quite impressive the amount of mines we're actually seeing Mario build. Obviously using a lot of these for defense against things like the Mutalisk, using them to pluck off that Overlord as well. It's quite an interesting function of this map actually. You've got Jimrising's 6th base now is actually going to have a high ground advantage over almost reaching to HTOMario. So we'll see how Jimrising uses. It should be quite easy for Jimrising to try and take up position on this high ground. These roaches unfortunately are going to take a lot of damage from these Widow Mines, and it looks like Jimrising is going to lose all of these roaches. Is he going to do any damage for them? Not a whole lot, so that's quite a one-sided engagement there. We have 3-3 on the way now for Jimrising. A few more drops look like they're making their way in, and we have HTOMario moving out. It's 166 supply to 193, and Mario deciding it's time to make his move. If you're wondering why these Vikings are here, in spite of the fact there's no air units on Jimrising's side, there to snipe the Overlords, and as soon as he can kill those Overseers, these Widow Mines just become so much more effective. Looks like Jimrising would like to go for a counterattack, but unfortunately those roaches are going to be terribly needed to try and defend the base. There's a massive swarm of Mutalisks, but that's a fantastic swarm of widow mines well, so got to be so careful. No drilling claws, unfortunately, is a bit of an oversight from Mario. Those widow mines could have been so much more effective against the Mulus. Mulus actually going to clean up all of the medevacs and take out actually 2 of the Thors. Got to get out of range of the widow mines, and does manage to. Tanks on the high ground, but those are going to get cleaned up as well. We really need these roaches over here to defend, but Mario is just smashing straight up the ramp of Jimrising here. Unfortunately for Jimrising, he has invested a lot in these Mulus, and Mulus just can't go toe to toe with this number of Thors. Things like the Widow Mines Vikings gonna pick them apart, and Jimrising agrees with us. Mech, very good race. So looks like Mario's mech's in fine form, able to power through Jimrising there, and quite a good indication of how mech measure up in the Zerg matchup. They do quite well in Zerg and Terran. Still struggle a little bit against Protoss, but we have seen some particularly good mech lately out of players like HTOMario and Val and some others. So I think Day 9 did a daily just the other day on Val's mech style. It was quite good, so if you haven't caught that, I'd advise going to check it out. Mech becoming ever more viable in the current environment, which I gotta say, pretty exciting for Terran, who've for quite some time have been mainly leaning towards bio, but it's nice to see a bit of a resurgence in this mech play. So hope you guys have enjoyed the cast. For those of you joining us for the first time, I hope you enjoyed it. By all means, please subscribe. We love having you here on the channel. If you've got any comments, please throw them down in the comments down below, and there'll be some more great Heart of the Swarm action right after this, guys. So thanks. We'll catch you all in the next cast.